Hey guys, welcome back to another impressions video. On a game I beat actually some time ago, and I just kept postponing the recording of the impressions video. But this game is none other than SteamWorld Quest: Hand of Gilgamesh. I think that's how you pronounce it. But SteamWorld Quest is the name for what the game is known, most commonly out there. And I did play this one on Stadia, since it was one of the quote-unquote free games for pro members. So it actually wound up being a very good way to play the game, just because you can stream it, play it anywhere, anywhere you have a browser or you are on your phone or anything like that. So I did enjoy that aspect of me playing this game. And my experience with the SteamWorld games, it's not very broad. The only other game in the series that I beat was the very first SteamWorld game, which I loved that game. I beat it twice actually, once on the 3DS and once on the PlayStation 3, I want to say, the digital version. And ever since then, I wanted to play the other games. And I took advantage of Stadia offering both SteamWorld 2 and Quest as free games, and I decided to start with Quest just because of the easy controlling nature. This is a turn-based RPG, but it's a card-based system. And another thing that drew me to play this game over others is the fact that you guys know me, I have a pretty broad selection of games in my collection. When I look at my shelf, I have games of every genre, and I play games of every genre. That's something that I'm really proud of in my channel. When I do my impressions videos, you guys will notice that I do impressions videos on RPGs, on first-person shooters, on sports games, on first-person shooters, third-person shooters, action games, adventures. You guys name the genre, but there's one genre that I've never really cared too much, and that is games that are card-based. I did play a little bit of the Jockey Club game on the 3DS. That was kind of fun. That was sort of like a card game, solitaire system. But this was the first proper game that I actually beat that it's like a card-based game. So that's why I wanted to tried this game out and enjoyed it, and I'm pleasantly surprised. This was actually a very fun game that hooked me enough to complete the game. And I'm saying this because, being an RPG, obviously it's not like a 3-hour long game or a 4-hour long. It took me 20 hours to beat this game. The game has 4 acts and I think a total of 18 or 19 chapters. And I thoroughly enjoyed most of the components of the game, namely the gameplay, obviously. Now the story, I'm not going to spoil anything. It's not the strong suit of the game. Obviously, this game is unrelated to the other SteamWorld games. I think they're all kind of are. They're kind of like separated from each other. But this is has like more of a fairy tale, I guess, direction and atmosphere to it. It's kind of like a bedtime book, a fairy tale that it's told through flipping a book and looking at the different acts and chapters in the game. But it's basically the story of two friends, Armili and Copernicus, which Armili, she is pretty big into joining the local guild of heroes, like club. And when she is trying to do that, they find out that their local town has been attacked. And so you set on an adventure to rescue the local guild and to actually find out what happened. And Armili, she's a pretty big fan of this like historical figure, of this historical hero that like 100 years ago or whatever, or 500 years ago or something like that, he beat this like evil force. And then that also plays into the story. I'm not gonna go into much detail. It's a very simple story, but it does have some interesting extra things that happen through the game, both by adding new party members that add to the story, and also just some events that happen towards the later chapters in the game. But nothing to write home about. It's a good story, but that's about it. The graphics are very simple, but they're very good looking. It's almost like a hand hand-drawn type of graphics in a lot of occasions. Reminds me a little bit of the vanilla Ware games. Not as much detail, obviously, but beautiful graphics, very colorful, and they really give that impression of a fairy tale book type of vibe throughout the game. And then the soundtrack, it's amazing. Some pretty good rocking tunes, and some pretty good like medieval type of songs also that kind of like suit the game pretty well. I thought the soundtrack was actually pretty good on this game. But let's focus a little bit on the gameplay. That's where the game shines in my opinion, and that's what kept me entertained, if you will, through the 20 hours that I played this game. The card, I'm not gonna describe in detail obviously, but I really enjoyed the card based system in this game. I really enjoyed how you have your basic attacks, and then you have kind of like your steam or mechanical attacks that use you have to use your free, quote unquote, free or basic attacks to build your steam attacks that use the points you have been accruing. And that adds a strategy, obviously, because some cards attacks obviously use more steam than others, and by doing that, those attacks are generally more powerful. But you have to be careful not to run out of like cogs or steam too soon, because you have to really strategize. And the enemies obviously are varied, and certain enemies are weaker to certain types of attacks. And just like any other RPG, you have your different effects here. You can use fire, ice, poison. You can paralyze enemies, or you can get paralyzed. Enemies can paralyze you. You can create confusion, bleeding. So a lot of renowned RPG mechanics or types of attacks and effects take place in this game. So it's a matter of using strategy, and the depth of the gameplay goes a little bit beyond that as well, by linking attacks. Sometimes the order in which you attack, you use your cards, you can build up more powerful attacks. Sometimes you can, for example, kind of like use like a water attack and then follow up with a electricity attack to create more damage. So a lot of different pretty interesting ideas that have been implemented into the battle or the card system in this game, that really kept me entertained throughout the whole game. And I think there are over 100 cards that you can collect. The good thing about this game versus I only briefly play Slay the Aspire, which is supposed to be kind of like the top dog when it comes to card games. That's supposed to be the most. I know in 2019 a lot of people chose that as their favorite game. So I only played that game briefly. I plan to going back because SteamWorld Quest kind of started this fun aspect for me playing card games. But in Slay the Spire, I believe you lose your cards after you either you lose the game or you complete the game. But in SteamWorld Quest, you get to keep your cards as you progress through all the different acts and levels, and you can upgrade your cards. You can get new ones, and of course, that gives you just an ample weights of attack and everything that I really enjoyed it. Now, as far as the characters that you can play in this game, I really enjoyed the variety. You start with Armelian Copernica, but as you progress through the game, you can have up to 5 or 6, depending on how you look at it, characters that you can switch, but you can only play with 3 of them. And my main party, or the characters that I decided to stick for most of the game, were Copernica, which she's one of the starting characters, Galileo, which is the first character that joins your party in the game, and then Auric, which is he's kind of like a very fast character that uses a katana, and he can switch masks and have different effects depending on the mask he wears. So those 3 were kind of like my main group, or my main team for most of the game. And I really enjoyed the the variety. For example, Galileo, he is a tank character. He's like this big mech or robot. So you would think right away, okay, he's going to be a tank character. He's going to be very physical, and you can make him very physical by choosing cards in his deck that are physical, melee attacks and things like that. But surprisingly, he wound up being for me like a very versatile character. He would have his physical attacks, obviously being a tank character, but he was also my healer, if that makes any sense. He was my healer, and he was my effect. Like he would lay effects on the other enemies. For example, he has a poison attack, which I found to be very useful, and I kept using the poison attack just to inflict poison. Once your enemies are poisoned, they keep getting damage, or they keep getting losing health as the game progresses. So Galileo was a very interesting character in the sense that he was like a physical brute tank character, but at the same time he was my healer, and he was also like an effect character, which I thought it was pretty cool. And then Copernica, I used her for a lot of magic attacks. She had some pretty powerful fire card attacks that I really enjoyed using. Also some electricity attacks, and then some ice attacks as well. So even though she's the mage of the group, I used her a lot for being aggressive, to attack the enemy a lot. And she was a very fun character to use as well. And finally, Auric, he's like the quicker character, and depending on the mask he's wearing, he can do different types of attacks to the enemies, and they just made a very good group. And then obviously the other two characters are Millie. She's kind of like the main protagonist of the game, but I decided to put her on the benches for the most of the game after I found that core group. But overall, the game was very fun. The script and the writing is not very strong. There are some cringeworthy moments. There are some dialogues, or the game is not voice acting or anything, but it's a lot of text. Sometimes the game can get a little bit boring. I think the writing goes a little bit all over the place. Sometimes I feel like the game tries to be way too funny. But towards the end of the game, there are certain pieces of writing that I thought were pretty good. You have a feeling of camaraderie towards the end with your group. What they have been through the journey they have been through together, and some of the emotions are pretty well written towards the end of the game, that really brings life, adds life to these characters, which was, in my opinion, lacking a little bit towards the beginning. But other than that, I think it was a good writing, a good story, but where the game truly shines is in the gameplay. And it was very addictive, either upgrading the cards, coming up with new decks, different, playing with the characters, like I was mentioning, Galileo being a tank, but also my healer. So you can really customize the way you play the game, and the battles were some of them were very challenging. I played this game on the normal difficulty, but the early chapters are very easy, and then the game kind of ramps up in difficulty around, I want to say, chapter 6. There's a chapter where the first enemy you encounter, he's like this dragon, like a boss battle from the get-go, and I remember that being pretty hard. But I think the more you become familiar with the cards and the different effects they have, I think the better you become at putting together a strategy, and of course the game also rewards exploration, because before you encounter the enemies, you can explore the areas to find treasure. The more treasure you find, the more money you have, and you can upgrade your abilities, your characters, buy more items, healing items and whatnot. So overall, I think SteamWorld Quest was a very well put together game. It reminded me of the greatness of Image and Form, which is the developer and the creators of the SteamWorld universe, which is a pretty solid universe. By now, I think there's 4 or 5 games in the SteamWorld universe, and I'm definitely looking forward into playing both SteamWorld 2, which is, I think it's a sequel to SteamWorld. I think I think most of the stories between the games are not connected, but SteamWorld 2 may be connected. I know SteamWorld 2 is another side-scrolling game, just kind of like the first one. But SteamWorld Quest and Heist are completely different in terms of gameplay and story. They're not related as far as I'm concerned. So definitely looking forward into trying more games in the SteamWorld universe. And SteamWorld Quest, a very very nice surprise, very pleasant surprise for me. I had a good time in the 20 hours that I put in this turn-based car RPG, with a card battle system. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this impressions video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all later.